Hey, what's going on? My name's Robert, and you are watching Southpaw Auto Works. This is the 4R70W. In this video, Andy is going to share what it takes to conduct an inspection on this Ford transmission. This helps us identify all of the hard parts that need to be replaced, but above all, it helps us pinpoint the root cause of the failure. Without further ado, let's get this show on the road.
So we want to do an inspection here of our 4R70W, give you some idea of what to look for, some recommendations on what to replace and so forth. First thing we're going to look at is the case and the bore on the back of the case right here. It can be an issue on some of these. It started with the AODE all the way up to the 4R70. Your output shaft and these metal rings right here, right in that bore in the back of the case. And they can create some issues with a wear or a groove in the back of the case. So we do want to inspect. It's got to be nice and smooth, no grooves that we can really feel at all in there. So if we do have an issue there, that case can be repaired. They can cut it, sleeve it, rather than having to replace the whole case. Another area to look for on these can be a problem is the pin bore area down in here in this overdrive servo. This can be a high wear area and can create leakage problems for the overdrive and or forward clutch circuit. And that would be this pin riding down in that bore right there. Once again, the aftermarket has provided us with a kit where we can ream that out, hone it out, put a bushing in and restore it back again, not have to replace the entire case. Clutches and bands I've pretty well mentioned before. We're just going to put in a new kit if we're going to build this. Steels in this little direct clutch pack, of course, that were burned up is not an option. We've got to replace those. Some of the other steels for the reverse, for the forward, as they say, far cheaper time-wise just to buy new ones. These do become kind of glazed here, and there's options to try and sand them and do all kinds of different things, but usually it's just cheaper time-wise to buy a kit with new steels and get it over with and be done. Same thing with our accumulator pistons, the servo pistons I mentioned before that are a bonded piston rather than a seal that you can replace. Best just to buy those, replace them while you're there, do it right. They may look good, they may feel good, they may fit in the bore well, but they tend to have problems with them shrinking, and that's not something we can see with our eye. So we're just going to put new ones in there and do it right while we're here.
Need 4R70W parts and or tools? Check out the resources section in the video description down below.
Pump itself, like I said, not usually a problem on these Ford transmissions, many of them, but we are going to look around the outer bore here for any serious scratches or any type of damage out here. Same thing on the face of the pump itself here. And of course, I mentioned before, the opposite side that the gears would ride against here on your stator or pump half, any serious wear or gouges there. This can be faced or machined on the lathe. These pumps can also be rebuilt if necessary. What I usually do is inspect, put new gears in, and of course we're going to put a new bushing and a new seal. And I would recommend most all of the bushings be replaced. You can buy a bushing kit, may or may not be part of an overhaul kit. I put them pretty much all in. You got to do it by a size thing. If you're checking the size on these drums and these bushings and so forth, it is unfortunate sometimes that you will replace one of the bushings in a drum or a sun gear or something, and it really doesn't fit a lot better. That can be unfortunate, but what I do as a general rule is try and think of just doing most of the bushings. This guy here actually is pretty good. I mentioned the surface on this drum. The drum itself I would probably just replace altogether because of the amount of crud and gunk that's built up in there. It would take you longer probably to clean that. Wouldn't be worth it just to buy another drum itself. Let's see what else we got. The planetary. Obviously looking for any chipped teeth, broken teeth here, and anything that a pocket screwdriver or a pick that would get caught in as we run it across the face of the tooth itself. We just do a visual inspection on it. We also check the side to side or up and down movement, checking the little washers that are in here. Each one of them is going to have a little washer to protect it from tearing itself up against the housing itself. So we're making sure those don't have too much end play. And of course, like I said, the surface of each of the gears. And of course, the mating gears that I mentioned on the sun gear where we're doing the bushing, we're looking for any chipped teeth, any gouges, anything here that the pocket screwdriver would catch on. The other sun gear and the shell that I was talking about before, same thing, we're looking at gear teeth and so forth. That's usually not a problem on here. What is a problem is, I'll get Robert to see if he can get a shot of this, is the wear right down in there. And that is from it riding against that reverse input drum and rocking against there. All right. This guy I would say is probably borderline. If I were going to build it, I'd probably just go ahead and replace it because of the amount of wear that's in there. You can actually develop a little bit of a clunk in some cases if this gets to be bad enough, and that's rocking back and forth between the drum and that shell itself. Oh, I was going to look at one of the hubs earlier. I think it looked like maybe we had some pretty good spline wear on the inside. We would need to check that also against the mating piece here. That's got quite a bit of rock motion to it. But I can actually rock that back and forth pretty good inside of that hub. And that would be wearing this hub, not on those splines, not usually anyway. The splines usually don't see much wear. And once again, if you can see it or not, but it's kind of what we would call like a shark tooth shape in there rather than a dull spline. And if you can actually look down in there, you get down in about 3/4 of the spline, you can actually see where it changes, where it's worn on the upper half and not the lower half. So that could be a real issue. We would want to replace that hub while we're in here.
Real quick, if this content is adding value, please let us know by hitting that like button. It does help the channel, and we do greatly appreciate your feedback.
Electronics on this transmission. This is a very high wear failure item. The electronic pressure control solenoid. It's a highly active solenoid. It's got a valve inside, and this valve is not just in there moving back and forth. It's actually vibrating, if you will. It works at a hertz level where it's actually in there kind of vibrating at times, and it's a high wear area. So that's going to be one that you're definitely going to want to replace, is that EPC solenoid. The harness that we mentioned, the lead frame, that's kind of a call on yourself on deciding whether you want to reuse that. If any of the lockdown or hold down clips are broken, I'm going to replace it. If there's any issues with the pins or the clips that these solenoids lock into, okay, they've got to be able to lock into each of those pins and be secure, or it's going to cause some type of a trouble code or an issue with it not shifting correctly. When I build them, normally I just go ahead and throw the whole box at them. Solenoids, harness, the case connector is another call, but it's far cheaper time-wise now just to replace that. And of course, I mentioned the other pistons before, and we showed you the failure on that guy. And that is what caused these guys right here, those direct clutches, to nearly weld themselves together. That accumulator is a cushioning device for that clutch to make the shift softer, but by that having damage to the piston itself, the seal itself, that creates a leak in the circuit that feeds that clutch, thereby causing not enough pressure to hold the clutches tight, causes them to burn. Last thing probably then would be the valve body. And I would probably do what the previous builder did, and that would be install some type of an aftermarket kit They did the Transgo kit on it. And another thing worth noting here, this little plate right here, you would see that on our AODE valve body, but on the 4R70s and so forth, they eliminated that plate. They decided all of a sudden they didn't need that anymore. That created leakage also. So what someone's done here is they've gone in and they've drilled the 2 holes that didn't exist before, and they've added an aftermarket plate to clamp that down tight, which is an excellent idea. Did create issues with, I think it was the forward and fourth circuit, causing the forward clutches to burn. And then there's many other items in here. If we decide to do a build video on this, we'll show you those and some of the other upgrades that we would probably do while we're in there. I think that would pretty much cover us.
This show is a ton of hours to produce, and we could really use your support. You can learn more by checking out the video description down below. So you just got done watching the Ford 4R70W inspection video. We've got a lot more in store for you from the likes of GM, Chrysler, and Toyota, to name a few. So if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell too, so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. Once again, my name's Robert, and I will see you next time.